Good morning, everybody. This is Anthony Lamb, AsBAA's Director of Marketing and External Affairs. I want to welcome all of you today to the AsBAA Business Aviation Career Talk, live from Hong Kong. This event is brought to you by AsBAA's Discovery Program. It is the CSR arm, the Student and Careers arm of the Asian Business Aviation Association. AsBAA Discovery is in partnership with various educational institutions in Asia, and we educate young people in careers in business aviation and general aviation as well to protect the industry's future talent stream. Now, through AsBAA Discovery, our members share their expertise. Members like our speakers today, we're sharing their insights and expertise all around the region. And just a very brief background on the program. Now, Discovery has been around for about 6 years now, and AsBAA's executive team and board directors would like to thank its volunteers in the program. As many of you know, the program was led by Sarah Kalmeda and supported by many volunteers in the region. So we'd like to thank Sarah Kalmeda for that, and also thank supporters who have worked tirelessly to donate their time and their expertise. These people include Amy Yang, they include Kathy Yu, Vishali, Chloe, Ida Ismail, Penny Lim, Max, Moshman, Rocky in China, Paul in Beijing, Loan in Singapore. There's many more. Lydia, Maggie, Twinkie. I'm sure there's more. And again, we'd like to thank you, all of you, for your help and for your time. Today, we have two very exciting speakers, or two esteemed speakers with us. Let me get their video on first, and then I will make the introductions. Bear with me here. Turn on my video first. Hopefully you guys can see me. Okay. All working from home these days. Let's see here. Unmute that.
Morning, Anthony.
Hey, morning, Simon. Morning, Vinna. Let me just make sure I got this
Morning, Anthony.
correct here. Hey, good morning.
Morning, Simon.
Morning, Vinna.
Loud and clear. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear there.
Loud and
Let me just make you both co-hosts, see if this works a little better.
There we go.
There you go. And let's wait for Simon to roll in. I love that background, both for that little Cessna there. Let me introduce our esteemed speakers for today. On your screen here is Vinna Tsang, founder and director of the V Executive Search. And we also have Simon Chee, assistant director of Career Services, Alumni and Corporate Relations with Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Asia. I want to thank you both for being here today, Vinna and Simon.
Pleasure to be here.
Let's get right in. Obviously, we'll start with Vinna here first. This is obviously a challenging year, right? Just to state the least, for the industry. What's the current job market like, Vinna, and what are some of the trends and concerns that you're noticing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the job market is still relatively stagnant as expected. I mean, last year actually, starting with the COVID, things start getting slower. And obviously there are a lot of measures coming from different companies, in terms of cost savings. But as we all know, in different situations, there are always needs Therefore, it all depends on where the employers are really looking for. In times like this, I think employers are more really cautious in terms of hiring the right talents. So they would invest more time into exploring the right candidates for their companies. And likewise for candidates, they are also very cautious. Like even though some candidates are unfortunately probably being made redundant, or for whatever reasons they have to leave their jobs, they will be extra cautious to look for the right opportunity because they don't want to be last in, first out. That's what we call it.
Right.
So that's the trend. But one of the concerns that I do see in the industry is that because there are a lot of bad press about the business aviation industry overall, due to airlines having restructuring, retrenching people, and that's why a lot of candidates who are within our industry having that hesitation to think whether they should remain in our industry. And for those who are wanting to join our industry as well, they would also have that hesitation. So the mental readiness for people to move in, it's really the number one concern that I see.
Do you think these concerns are they apply sort of broadly from fresh grads all the way to executive level, or is it a certain sector, a certain experience level?
I would say it's more with fresh grads or the more junior ones. For more experienced ones, of course, they have seen different cycles as we expected, right? So they know, when waves hit, they know where to go and how to prepare. But I think it's more for the younger generation that they would have, if they have a choice, they would weigh and balance the risk and say, okay, maybe this industry probably is not the best time to get into. So more education is required really to get them be aware of what's happening in the midterm, short-term, and long-term prospects.
Right. Thanks for that, Vinna. Simon, over to you. What's the current atmosphere like among your students, especially for those who joined Embry-Riddle, obviously with certain aspirations to one day be in aviation, to work in aviation. Should they stay flexible? What are their options here?
Thank you, Anthony. And before I start, I think I give a shout out. Thanks to AsBAA Discovery for giving me the chance to actually share my thoughts and views on the aviation industry from sunny part of Singapore. And from the participants, I think I saw some of the students. Big welcome, Eagles. Hopefully, I can speak your mind right now. So for the first question, the atmosphere. If I say it, atmosphere is as per 2019, I'm lying. Okay. So basically now, because due to the pandemic, there's sort of an uncomfortable and tense environment among the students. There's a lot of doubts that whether they can find a job, whether they can find an internship at this current moment, do they need to actually pivot to another industry before the aviation picks up again. There's a lot of question marks. There's a lot of questions in their mind, and as educators, I think we are. This is our responsibility to actually not really hold their hands, but actually open up their horizons to other opportunity, other options they have after graduation. Because in ERAU Asia, we are very aviation centric. So basically, we eat, sleep, and aviation. Nothing about aviation. So as you all have known, this pandemic has hit the aviation industry to rock bottom, almost to rock bottom, and it's like a test. It's like a test for the school whether we are resilient enough to actually overcome these 2-3 years of bad times, and also a test to the students whether they are able to keep their passion and motivation going for all this time, and actually do something else that actually to tie them off. And when the aviation industries pick up, they're able to join the aviation industries. And for the second question, whether they should be flexible, yes, definitely they should be flexible. And I deal with students, I deal with alumni, I deal with some corporate partners. I see a lot of examples. Okay, students graduated, they are jobless. It's not just the aviation industry, it's basically almost every industry itself. And for alumni, some of them are made redundant, and some of the corporate partners, they have been in the industry for the past 5-10 years because they are doing maybe in the regional area, regional director, regional manager, they are made redundant. So the key point now is they need to adapt to the new environment. They need to be flexible. Okay? Sitting there and worrying about what will happen the next week, 1 month later, 2 months later, it's no use. You've got to be resourceful and find ways to actually overcome this.
So you're saying they should perhaps think longer term. You're saying
That's right. That's right.
Mm.
Look at the longer term because as I mentioned previously to Vinna and Anthony, aviation industry is cyclical. What goes down must always go up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How would you say pre and post pandemic? What are some of the key differences of in their mindset? How should they change post pandemic when the industry is recovering? So previously they could be getting straight into internships, right after university or getting their first jobs. What should they expect that may be different now?
I would say the huge difference pre and post pandemic is, first of all, they really need to lower their expectation. That is really critical. I think basically in Singapore itself, most of the internship are paid for, so you actually get an allowance for internship. So at this moment, I would say for 2020, I would say 98% of the companies are not hiring interns. Because of their finance, they are trying to tighten their finances and whatnot. So lower the expectation is very critical, and they need to have an open mind. Open to all the opportunities that is available, because in career services, I always teach the students, I transfer all my knowledge to them, saying that in job application, there's always a team called transfer skills. Okay, whatever you learn in a certain industry can be transferred to another industry itself. Let's say, for example, procurement. Every industry requires a procurement, be it banking and finance, pharmaceutical, aviation industry. Everybody needs to procure certain things. So this is a type of transfer skill that the students or the fresh graduates can look into at the moment. And just don't be picky, lower down the expectation, just grab onto anything they can find at the moment. It's for survivability, for sure.
Right. Vinna, how often have you seen candidates sort of coming into business aviation or general aviation from another industry? Is it common perhaps before this COVID? And how important do you think it is now for people to stay flexible in this?
Right. It's actually not too common before the pandemic. I would say, since I started my business 3 years ago, I actually, tried to also educate my network of circle that obviously bringing new talents from outside the industry is important to nurture the next generation. But I think with the pandemic, of course, a lot of industries suffer, right? Not just aviation. So I think for those who are keen to explore something new, other than what they have been used to in the past, this is a really good time, because this is the time where hiring managers probably would have more resources in terms of time to teach and handhold, for those who want to actually learn. But I would say, to answer your question, before the pandemic, not really. I need to put extra effort to really get people learn about our industry. And if they are not naturally passionate about the industry, then it's kind of difficult, because that's what you need to succeed in our industry.
I think we mentioned this industry was also, there's a thing with the image of the industry as well, right?
Exactly, because the perception obviously, it's very glamorous and far-fetched to reach. And a lot of times, because it's a very unique industry where it's not, commonly, being discussed in media, for business aviation particularly. That's why when, you reach out to candidates saying, oh, this is an opportunity within the business aviation sector, some of them get very excited and say, okay, what is it about? Learn more about it. And on the other hand, somebody might be really resisting to join because of the different, connotations. The glamorous side of things, they're not really that type kind of thing. But, in fact, our industry is actually very technical, highly hands-on. Even at C-suite level, you have to be very hands-on with client relationship management, the value chain within our industry, the network, it's closely knitted. So one brings, obviously, ties together with another. So it's more the attitude and the passion. Passion is the key, is all I can say.
One more for Vinna here. How do you think your candidates that you've evaluated thus far have adapted to this current climate?
They are actually, having a better expectation. I have placed candidates outside of the industry into our industry just 2 months ago,
Mm,
so still relatively fresh. And yeah, the feedback that I got is, it's more complicated in terms of the industry dynamics, but also the outlook overall. It's more positive compared to what she would have expected before joining the industry.
mhm, mhm.
That's what she sees.
Right. How about Simon? How are your students adapting to choosing majors, perhaps select different courses, focusing on different studies? What advice can you give them?
I will say at the current situation, I don't meet the students a lot, but I do conduct workshops with them. I speak to them a bit.
Mhm,
So basically, the students, I would say they are managing well, very positive, very open mind. They know what's going to happen. They know what they know what to do. I would say because our students are basically pretty different from other universities because, as I mentioned, ERAU Asia is very aviation centric. So they know what's
mhm,
happening. So they know what to do. If they
mhm,
know that we have the resources here, they can go to the faculties, they can go to me for advisors or anything like that,
mhm,
and we will try our best to actually there's always a saying in the school, we are here actually not to fail you but to help you. So I think most of the students here they understand our thoughts, and I'm very glad of that. If is looking at the majors, the minors, the specialization, I would say there's not much changes. Because as you mentioned, aviation industry is all about passion. Okay, if you do not have the passion, you are not able to survive in the aviation industry. It's not about it's not a lucrative industry like investment or some of the banking and finance position. It's really about what Vinna has said is technical, and you actually have to be have that passion in industry to keep your engine going, and to
mhm,
actually go up the corporate ladder, and actually because I deal with a lot of VPs from Boeing, from Embry-Riddle. They are there for the past like maybe 10, 20, 30 years. Is that
mhm,
determination, is that passion that actually help them to go up the corporate ladder. Yeah.
mhm,
So for the specialization, let's say for example, we have some specialization like air traffic control management, some engineering stuff, and maybe logistics, supply chain. I think there's not much changes. The students are still following what they like best, about the industry itself. And to touch on that, for ERAU Asia, because our classes is conducted pretty different from the other university in Singapore itself. So we do this thing called the blended learning. Although that due to the COVID situation, things are a little bit different in class because the social distancing, the limited number of students, and all the mask wearing is pretty daunting. But in ERAU Asia, it's in ERAU, we are actually the top educator for online education back in US. So we have a solid platform for the students to actually use, and I would say that there's no really much difference in the things that the students actually get back from the education from the school itself. Things
mhm,
are much more or less the same. Yeah, and for advice, I got tons. I got so much advice for the students. It's like I understand. I always put myself in their shoes. I understand how they feel. It's like it's pretty daunting. And as a parent, I will understand that if my son or my daughter is in the school itself, and that, oh my God, it's worrying. It's really worrying for the parents and the students itself, whether they find a job or whatnot. It's like, but I would say I see a lot of examples of fresh graduates and alumni and corporate partners. They are, I think it's that never give up mentality that actually help them along the way. Let's say, for example, you mentioned Sarah Kamuta. She's a very good example. She's a very good example. I would say I will portray her as a mentor because she's in the aviation industry ever since she graduated for the past 10, 20 years. Not 20 years, 10 years. And she was actually made redundant twice. But she picked herself up and start again. I think that's the passion and that mentality I want my students to have. As in, even if you graduate, just don't give it. If you cannot find a job, so be it. Okay, make yourself useful. there's a lot of options you can go after graduation. I think this advice is for all the students, not just my students. I think there's other options that are pivoting to other industry, or maybe starting your own business, or even going for further studies, your master's study or your PhD studies, or anything like that. Just get yourself busy to tie off this moment, so you won't think too much. When you think too much, you have that bad mindset and that depression mentality. So it's to keep yourself busy, and things will just be, there'll be a silver lining across, for sure.
Absolutely. Passion is really the engine that drives those who stay in aviation. And like you mentioned, all these executives that we see, the OEMs, the operators and MROs and so on, with decades of experience in aviation, having stayed in aviation. One thing that really resonated with me, Simon, and Vinna as well, is that we know how the students feel. We've all been students once, right? Just to share a very brief background of my own. When I was a student in university, I was actually a music major, right? But my passion in aviation pushed me to get flight training and getting the private pilot certificate during university. I knew about universities like Riddle, after graduation, actually, because I only got into aviation, only thought about aviation in college. And so it was after I graduated that I then sought out careers and internships in aviation. And of course, with a music degree, right? I mean, I still have a keyboard over there. You guys see that? That's a keyboard. I still play music. And my degree is in music, but with enough passion, with enough drive, like we said here, it can push you to get into an industry that you really love and to stay in it, right? And that's 10, 15 years later, I'm still in aviation, right? So passion definitely is a necessary ingredient, I think, and I think I speak for a lot of people when I say that. Speaking of these experienced veterans, right? They've been in here for a long time. To Vinna here, maybe how are these experienced veterans of the industry dealing with this current climate? I mean, obviously, COVID-19 is not just targeting certain groups of people; they're targeting everyone, right? No one is immune to these downturns. So, how are these executives dealing with this?
They are absolutely resilient, very agile, very adaptive, and very mobile to relocate if need to. I mean, that's always the case when you come across, pandemics or, economic downturns. You have to be remaining resilient and just see where the opportunities are. And a lot of these senior executives usually would forego their usual titles. Say, for example, if they have been in a CEO position before, and unfortunately that role doesn't exist anymore, they will actually jump into something else that actually can benefit the company, to turn around the business, or how to remain active within a certain business that helps the company to grow in the next 5-10 years. It's so more long-term strategic view. It's where these industry veterans would be successful. And a lot of times, these industry professionals also would take the downtime to, let's say, learn a new skill. Even at C-suites, you might want to understand more about the marketing trend. And that's exactly someone who I know is taking the downtime to, take extra courses about the latest trends. So when the market picks up, he knows or she knows, what it's going to be like in the next 5 years, how the marketing trend goes. So I think it's more about how you as a person, are being adaptive. You need to adapt to different situations. And there are also overseas, opportunities, right? So just don't get stuck in one, area or location. If obviously, economic situation or whatnot permits, or family matters permit, relocate, to where the opportunities are. Say for example, in Southeast Asia, Vietnam is a rising zone, right? So if there are opportunities out there in Vietnam that are suitable, why not, especially for youngsters, right? If there are opportunities in Southeast Asia, anywhere in Greater China, just go with an open eye, open mind. That would be my best advice for students, wanting to look into the business aviation industry.
So it sounds like it's more important than ever now, Vinna, for students to cross over their comfort zone, to expand their comfort envelope.
To expand their comfort envelope, exactly. You just need to think outside of the box. Sometimes, if you just look at what's current in your location, may make you depressed because there are not opportunities out there, right? And you're fighting with many others, who may be more qualified. Another thing is, just do not afraid to apply to jobs that list out A to Z. They're obviously in the job descriptions that everybody wants, from A to Z, right? But if you don't match every single one of them, still apply. You never know, with your background experience, probably with your extracurricular activities, that shows your initiatives. Sometimes employers are picking up things like that rather than your actual, responsibilities. So yeah, no boundaries in terms of location. If you can, think outside of the box.
Simon, what do you think would be helpful for the students in terms of what these more seasoned executives can do for them?
Before I start on that question, I will touch on what Vinna has said. I totally 100% agree with her. So I let me quote an example. I do have a student, a master's student, graduated, I think it's 2018. He's 60 years old, for your information. He joined us for our master's program because he really have the passion in the aviation industry. He's coming back to us to it's like a childhood dream for him. So it's like a dream come true for him. Although I think he did not manage to get back to the aviation industry because of the COVID thing, but I think he has no regret. Frankly speaking, he has no regret. I'm still in communication with him. I WhatsApp message him sometimes, and I can feel that his passion for the industry is still burning, and he's still happy now. Yeah. So I would say, there's always a saying, when the economy is down, the education industry will usually go up because a lot of senior executive, when things are getting slower, they actually try to upgrade themselves, be an EMBA or MBA as well. So this is one advice that for some of the, I wouldn't say for fresh graduate, but more on those who just started their career and set to say because of this pandemic, they are made redundant. I know a couple of my students a couple of my alumni were actually been through that. I think it's time to actually rethink their future or what they're going to do, and move on and carry forward everything that with them. And going back to the question itself, what will be helpful for the students? I think for senior executive now, because most of us are working from home, I think it's time to actually, especially for alumni, it's time to actually reach out to the students again. I think the student nowadays going through so many Zoom sessions, there's so much Zoom fatigues, and they have so much advisors. I think they will really want to listen from someone that has been through the same path with them, almost the same path with them. I say, for example, the students inspired to be an air traffic controller. They will need really someone who is really an air traffic controller officer to actually talk to them, which is legit to them. Let's say, for example, if I talk to them or talking how glamorous the thing is, how wonderful, how stressful the thing is, they will sort of maybe leave 80% because I'm not a full-fledged air traffic controller. This is what my perspective of the job is. So it's critical now for the students, for the alumni, or for the very senior partners to actually reach out to the school and see and do whatever they can to actually help the students. I think this is really, really important.
Going back a little bit to Simon about resources for students. I mean, how should this might be a little bit controversial, of course, but internships, or perhaps let's say an unpaid internship, or getting their master's. Is that something I'm sure that's something I've thought of before. Do you think they're one is better than the other, especially for business aviation?
I would say at this current moment, anything will work. Literally anything will work. Be it a contract job, be it a part-time job, a pro bono internship, or anything that comes along the way. As long as it's somehow related to aviation, grab the opportunity, grab the chance. Don't let it go. Because in the current situation, a simple aviation job, let's say for example in Singapore itself, a simple aviation job from CAS, okay, the Changi Airport Group, and a job from them usually have close to 1,000 applications. So how are you going to actually
Distinguish yourself?
distinguish yourself, stand out from the crowd, right? So I will usually advise the students try to use all the resources they have, and why would you like to fight with so many candidates, and whereas you can actually find something that is a more niche area. I always have this mentality. I'm quite a philosophy guy. So why do you want to be a small fish in a big pond, and why don't you be a big fish in a small pond? Yeah, I mean, so look for those jobs that is pretty niche, is unique, something along that line, and go for it. And why do we want to fight with the rest of the 999 application for that airport job?
Good point. Yeah.
How are you going to be? Because there's a lot of Ivy Leagues in Singapore, Ivy League institute. There's a lot of big business school. How are you going to be over them? It's really difficult. By looking at the resume, is that unless you have like straight A's, distinctions, or you have a very good other internship from other big companies, maybe McKinsey or some the big fours, something along that line. Yes, maybe you will win, but as a fresh graduate, it's really tough. It's really tough.
Yeah,
so, yeah,
absolutely. I think I like to also, while we're on this topic, to remind the students here that even if you're convinced that your end goal, your ultimate goal is to work for a particular company, let's say in Singapore, you can always go back to it after you get your skills elsewhere. You can relocate to various countries, build your skills, have an accelerated career experience, right? Climb the career ladder, if you will, in a place where demand for talent is so high, but supply for talent is so low, where you can get in, right? Get a foot in the door, get your skills, learn on the job. Most job skills are learned on the job anyway, right? And so to build your skill sets elsewhere, other than, let's say, in your home country, and then when you get the chance in the future, which I'm sure you will, to apply for that company that you really wanted, 3, 5, 6, 10 years ago, and then come back to where you want. So I've seen this case many times across the industry, right? You may be convinced that this is what you want. Let's say it could be Singapore Airlines, it could be a certain operator. It will be there. You can always come back to it. Okay. Most importantly, it's that you build your job skills, because the job skills are always transferable. Okay. Vinna, what do you think about this?
I can agree more with what you've mentioned, and also Simon mentioned. And just to add to that, I think it's a good opportunity for graduates, especially and young students, to network, right? Because networking is the key. No matter where you are in your home country, if you're working abroad, even if you're taking a program in school, your friends of friends, even families of friends, if you have that network, just build that up. It will be useful in the future. So just don't be afraid to join courses, or get into a role that is not, as Zante mentioned, not your dream role, dream company for the moment. You never know what it will take you to. So that's my best advice.
Vinna, I have one more question here for you. In your evaluation of your candidates, do you for business aviation, do you often see that they were aviation majors, for example?
Not really, unless it's subject matter expert roles, right? Pilot,
okay.
Those are different areas. Other than that, for the commercial positions, for example, or even for back office positions like finance or HR, no, they're not. Take myself as an example. I'm not from aviation either. I've been in the industry for 10 years. I got to know the aviation industry when I worked as a recruiter before with the FTSE 500 company. And I'd actually knock on the door, and I got this opportunity to work in the industry, and I grew myself up there. So I would say no. I would say unless it's a subject matter role, as I mentioned, 90% I don't see is coming from aviation.
Right. And this is for both of you. Should these candidates, or should students now, they should keep their options open, but like, what about part-time, freelance, temporary positions? Should they all be on the table?
Yes. Yes, definitely. Everything helps. It shows their initiation. They're not just sitting there waiting for something to come along. Volunteer work, freelance, whatever you can, even if it's not aviation related. If it's difficult to find something within aviation, find something else.
Mhm.
Your social skills, your commercial acumen, are all built coming from, working in different sectors. So it's all transferable. And when I evaluate candidates, I don't necessarily just go by their responsibilities. I often actually ask about what they have been engaged outside of the company, so that I know, the strengths, outside of the actual responsibility. Right?
How much of these experiences do you think employers value? Freelance, temporary, all that.
It depends on what role you're in. For subject matter expert roles, of course, it adds value in terms of a social perspective, your communication skills and whatnot. But if it's more for, general positions, then people really definitely, employers look for your team, team building, people management skills, for example, and your overall demeanor, how you present yourself. I think that's important for commercial positions, especially. And that's really outside of what you can see from on the resume.
Let's talk about relocation, right? Job demands and supply overseas. We mentioned earlier, right? Keeping options open, staying flexible, relocate if you have to. And even the executives are doing that, right? Veterans and seniors in the industry. This is the topic about mobility as well. A fresh graduate may be more mobile, likely, than someone, let's say, who has a family, kids, husband, wife, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
How should they think about this? Should they consider working overseas more than local, or should they try to find something sort of homegrown if they can?
Right. I think they have to strike a balance. If you have family concerns, family needs, let's say you need to take care of parents, for example, then you might have a little bit of limitations. But then I think a lot of times some companies would have flexibility if they have that, worldwide network where they can stay in one country for, let's say, a year time and then relocate back to hometown, for example. You can assess that as a candidate. Homegrown roles, if they are available, of course, then just go for it. But I would say for youngsters, definitely open your mind and really get into a country where you think there are huge growth potential, and eventually you can move back to hometown if you need to. I've seen lots of cases like that where people move to Dubai, for example, the Middle East, right? Because that's where business aviation has been thriving for the past few years, and they have been there for a few years and then move back to Singapore, for example. That's what I've seen, quite common. Philippines, for example, Vietnam, as I mentioned, something new. It's not for everybody, and understand that, of course, if you have family concerns, you yourself might be the only one moving and kids leaving behind, in your home country, and that's very common as well. But I think it's really striking the balance. How many years are you going forward, and where do you want to get up to, and what experience you want to gain? I think for business aviation, in Asia is still a lot of growth potential. So within Asia, anywhere really, I believe has that room for people to develop. And if you want to excel, I think relocating to somewhere else definitely would give you a better edge. Whereas for homegrown roles, yes, it's more stable. If it suits your lifestyle, obviously that's not an issue. But the competition, you have to consider that as well. Yeah.
Should candidates relocate for their own personal and professional growth, or should they relocate because, let's say, employers value overseas experience, or is it both?
I would say a bit of both, but it's more the personal passion, right? So I think it's really, if you want to reach to a milestone, there is something that you must do, and if relocation is one, so be it.
So perhaps seeing as long-term as possible, and then maybe working backwards from that and then connecting the dots.
Exactly.
If I may like to add to what,
of course, please.
Sorry for that. So if you look at the perspective of a student, especially a foreign students, every year we have a handful of foreign students that have joined us. This is not a lot, maybe 5 to 10% of the student population. I'll say their dream is to actually, the dream number one is to complete a degree with us. Their dream number two is actually to find a job in Singapore and settle down in Singapore. But I think I would say due to this pandemic, this critical time now, most of the country will actually value their own citizens first. And I would say I have seen a lot of examples, a lot of all those EPs or AsBAA work permits are actually rejected. Okay, so what I always mention to or advise the foreign student is not finding a job in Singapore is not the end of the world. Okay, as what Anthony has mentioned, everyone has a dream. Let's say, for example, I have a dream in working in maybe Boeing or Airbus, the big plane manufacturers. Go back to your hometown, go back to your country, start from there. It's always easier to move within a company than to move across to a country. Yes, I think that's the critical mindset for students that is who's longing to actually craft their career in a foreign land. They have to be really open and be very flexible. If they can't go to point A, why not go back to point B? They may be able to do something better in point B. Because I do have a lot of foreign students that graduated 2018, 2017. They're doing really well back in their home country, like in Sri Lanka, in India, or some of them back in the US itself. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, this also hits close to home. I mean, I wanted an aviation career in the U.S. where I'm from, and that was, I think that was 2009, and that was during the downturn in the U.S. The downturn of 08, 09, and so my own job search took me overseas to China. So I also relocated to the other side of the world, dropped families, dropped friends, right? Because I wanted a career in aviation, right? And so even without the pandemic, these things can happen, right? There, just in the U.S. alone, there was 9/11, for example, there was 08, right? And so it's always a cycle, right? We got to remind the students, so it's always a cycle. There are up and downs that you can't control, but what you can control is how you react to it. Okay, your options, where to go, and like both Vinna and Simon here have said, keep your options open. Right, everything counts now. They count even more. Right. We have a bit of time here for some questions, so I'd like to open this up to our attendees today. We have many attendees here. Feel free to write in your questions in the chat. We'll be happy to address them here. We'll just give this a couple minutes. And we can still chat around here for some small talk.
Question, anonymous attendee, a grade 11 student looking forward to joining the business aviation industry. As experienced professionals, what can I do or work to become a desired candidate? From my perspective, I think you can do a lot more research. Probably start with researching what's available in terms of what types of positions you want to get into in business aviation. I mean, the industry itself, it's very wide, right? You have subject matter expert roles versus, non-subject matter expert roles. So if you wanted to get into more, say, engineering or pilot, then obviously, think about Embry-Riddle, right? That's somewhere you want to go to get your professional training done. And with that, certificate or diploma or bachelor's degree, then you can actually have your application into the industry and do volunteer work that's related. I mean, it might be difficult for grade 11s, but there are sort of student forums, I believe, coming from universities that help people to network and build up their knowledge towards the industry. And I think that's the best way to gear yourself for.
Okay, from the educator point of view, I would say it's now very important to know what is your goal and what you're looking for. Okay, everybody have a dream. Okay, I want to be a pilot, but do you really know what the pilot goes through and the training that they goes through? Okay, 10, 15 years ago, I always tell this to my students who want to be a pilot. 10, 15 years ago, pilots drive Porsche. Okay, 15 years later, pilots are driving Toyota. That is as simple as that. It's not as glamorous as it used to be. So you really need to know if you have an interest in joining business aviation industry, you must know what's the industry about. Okay, it's because I do ask some of my students, do they know what is business aviation? They will just say that, oh, it's the business part of aviation, which is wrong, which is totally wrong. There's commercial aviation, there's business aviation, there's general aviation. You really need to know what are you going to get when you join this industry, not just blindly go into it. Get it? So we do more research. The best way is to get to talk to people in the industry itself. Okay, let's say for example, you want to be to work as a flight operator for business aviation. Talk to someone that is already in that job. What to expect? How glamorous is the job? Are they going to work shift? What is the daunting part of this job? And what is the satisfaction of being a flight operator? This is all the things you need to know. This is very important. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Got another question that just popped in.
One thing we can cultivate in the comfort of a home is soft skills. Aside from a never give up attitude, what other soft skills should people in the industry or looking to be industry should possess? From my perspective, I would say agility, right? Agility, it's a soft skill, something not that you can train perhaps, but, it's really putting yourself, stretching yourself and see, how you can get from one challenge to another. I think that's something a lot of candidates would have been missing in good times because things are too easy, right? In good times when jobs are available, you can jump from one to another pretty easy. But in times like this, you really have to, think further and be mobile, be agile to go. So really, I think it's your mindset, how actually you can control your mindset to not be too bothered by the pandemic, for example, and be more open-minded, think outside of the box. That's what I think it's more useful during this time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, for my opinion is besides soft skills like pivoting or the never give up attitude, flexible, adaptability, I think at this current moment, if you want to brush up on your soft skill, I think you've got to read more. Be it some research paper or some books about, I think critically now, companies are looking towards a leadership, communication skills, how to be an effective communicator, how you're going to lead a team, how you're going to be a team player. All these are the soft skills that our companies are looking for, besides a straight A's, a distinction, a degree that you have. I think a lot of these key skill sets that is critical to be input in your resume, and how you're going to carry yourself in an interview, how you're going to write your resume, how you're going to boost up your LinkedIn profile. Everything plays a part. Although being the never give up attitude is good, but the rest of the things you need to touch on them too. This is really, really important.
Also to the students here, now that, for now you're still going to be in school, right? In university. And so that's also a different environment from the workplace, from the workforce. You guys may have a great mentor like Simon with Embry-Riddle, but as you enter into the workforce, you really may or may not have a great mentor. Again, it really depends on your luck. It depends on which company you're with and which team you're on and all that. So those are opportunities for you to start gating your soft skills too, is how to deal with people and how to if need be to learn skills on your own. Now you have mentors like Simon and like Vinna to guide you while you're in this educational space. Outside of it, you have to count on yourself just as much. And so I think it's important to be intellectually curious about your industry, about your own skills, about your own personality. Are you a little more introverted? Are you a little more extroverted? Those can also affect whether you take front end roles or back end roles, both of which are equally important, right? They are part of the ecosystem of any industry. And so start, I would say, now that you're home more, now that you're locked down more due to the pandemic, take this as an opportunity to understand yourself a little more, and to remember that you may have great mentors now in school, but after that, ultimately, you can only count on yourself. Okay. If you have a great mentor at work, great. That's a bonus. Okay. And even having good social rapport, good social skills will actually help you get better mentors as well in the workplace. Right. We've all been there with, with our mentors who are CEOs, for example. I'm sure many, people, the same people who hired us have stayed with us. And in my case, there are many executives who have mentored me over the years. And at the end of the day, they can only help me as much as I help myself. And they'll likely help those who they see are able to be resourceful for themselves. Right. That's how mentors pick mentees. Okay. Keep that in mind. All right. We have another question here. What are your expectations on the industry's future development? And is the industry recovering? To what extent? Thank you.
Maybe I start first, Vinna. So what do I look at the industry now? For Singapore, I think we have started to our vaccination for the older generation. The government did a forecast for the region. Say they mentioned that it's going to take 5 to 7 years to actually vaccinate all the people in Asia Pac. I would say I'm pretty optimistic about that because you can really see some of the countries are really opening up because of the vaccine. Like, for example, I think I read a news about London. They are actually lowering down their restrictions, and people are crazy about flying. They're flying everywhere to the nearby cities to have their holiday they're looking forward to. I think for as an education point of view, things are really picking up because I do receive emails, calls from aviation companies in Singapore checking out how's the students, when is the students available for internship, when is the next graduating cohort. These are, I would say, telltale signs that these things are really picking up, and companies are actually gearing themselves for the next wave. So they're trying to, because as big companies, they always want the top students from the education institute. So they would actually book the students before they even graduate. It's not just the aviation industry, be it in the law or in financial industry. They all like to book the top students. So I would say I'm optimistic. I will not say that in the next 6 months or 1 year, but it's going to be a slow, but for sure he will recover.
I second that with what Simon just mentioned. And from a commercial corporate perspective, I have to say our industry actually overall it's quite optimistic in terms of the recovery. Yes, it will take time. Nobody knows, nobody has a crystal ball in terms of whether it's going to be in the next year or so. But with this pandemic, blessing in disguise, I think for our industries have created a new market for new business jet owners and new charterers. Because they cannot travel through commercial aviation. For those who really need to travel, they have to find other avenues. And I think private jet business aviation, it's one avenue. So lots of companies that I've been speaking to, yes, they're very prudent. They are not hiring as much at the moment, but they are actually on the lookout for, say, business development candidates because they are gearing up for the upturn where Asia, Southeast Asia in particular, is a market that I think for business aviation will continue to thrive. And as mentioned before, Vietnam, for example, is one area that we see more private jet owners are having business there. And therefore, if somebody is open out for Vietnam to be based there, for example, even for pilots, there are opportunities. So to answer that, yes, the expectation, the recovery for business aviation, it's on its way, but it's very, very slowly. It all depends on how the vaccine works. It all depends on how the regulations is very technical. Even if one country opens up, another country is not that open, of course that creates extra, challenges. But overall speaking, we are very optimistic.
Mhm. I think for sure, and we can all agree, the industry will be normalized again one day, and so the real discussion really comes down to what we can do now to prepare us ahead for the time when opportunities will be back up again. So what you do now, between now and then, will determine how competitive and how successful you may be when the opportunities return again, right? So that's why we got to stay flexible, keep your options open, right? There are professionals, executives, pilots, and flight attendants worldwide that, with families, with newborn kids, right, that are experiencing this and that are losing their jobs with this. Think about this on the other side, the upside of this. Right? Flip the coin and think about this. You're likely more mobile because you don't have dependents, right? And you're younger, you have more energy. You can accomplish certain things that some of the older folks may not be able to. So think about the upside, right? I would say exhaust your upside, but with mobility, keeping options open. You're preparing yourselves well with great mentors at university, like Embry-Riddle. They'll help establish a solid foundation to prepare yourselves for when the opportunities come. But between your university and the workforce, it's all you. It's you that has to drive. That has to have that engine behind you to persevere throughout these ups and downs. Lastly, right, again, it's a cycle. Even if there's no pandemic now, you likely will experience some sort of downturn, a major downturn, might I add, somewhere down the road in your career. And now you're experiencing this early. You're experiencing this with, likely a lower cost than if you have a family down the road, right? And you have kids that you're responsible for, right? So think about it from the very long term, right? Put that into perspective, right? Anything else to add, Simon, Vinna? We can let's see if there are any other questions here.
Yeah.
Any closing remarks?
Yeah, just want to encourage students to really be resilient, add value to your profile, discover your strengths, think outside of the box. I think that's the key to survive in times like this, and think long term, as Simon and Anthony both have mentioned. Because if you think short term, in the next 6 months or 1 year, it's not gonna help too much. But if you think about 5 years, 10 years in aviation overall, then definitely the market is there, and how you get there. Really, it's now, what you do, as Anthony mentioned, networking, and also, gear up yourself with programs like Embry-Riddle, that you can continue to learn throughout your career. I think, learning never stops, at whatever age.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say for me is besides getting a good degree, a relevant degree. Okay, now the current situation, there's 3 words very important to all of us: to pivot, adaptability, and flexibility. Beside these 3 points, I think most of us getting a bit sick of these 3 words. I think beside these three points, I have 3 advices for be a fresh graduate, a student, an alumni, or a corporate partners, or any professional in the aviation industry. Always have the mentality to be able to turn crisis into opportunities. Let's say, for example, in business aviation, they don't treat it as a crisis. Yes, it's a crisis to everyone, but how are you going to make this crisis into an opportunity to you? There's a lot of way to it. Okay, think about it. Secondly is currently I think it's really, there's a Chinese saying, it's very difficult to change the environment to suit yourself. Why not change yourself to suit the environment? You got to be flexible, got to adapt to the new changes, the new norm. Change yourself. Don't be so rigid. Okay, if you have, as all the panelists here mentioned, that you have to be open mind, flexible. Okay, change yourself. Okay, be it anything. Okay, just to adapt to the situation that it is currently happening. And last but not least, this is what Anthony has mentioned just now. Know yourself, which is very critical. I can tell you that. Getting a good degree, knowing what's business aviation is about, knowing what's commercial aviation about, knowing what's Boeing doing, is one thing. Okay, you got to know yourself. Okay, at this current time when things are not so hectic, go and try out some of the personality tests that is online, that's free. I myself is a Myers-Briggs type indicator, a trainer. So I always conduct this workshop for my students. I think it's great. It's important for the students to know what their strengths and what their weaknesses. Why? They need to amplify their strengths and mitigate their weaknesses. Know where their blind spots, know where are their weaknesses, and just don't work on them. Just work on your strengths. That is very important. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your insights, both of you, Simon and Vinna. I don't think we have any other questions coming up, although I see that we have the same amount of participants throughout, and people are staying past 12. So I can tell how important this is to them. If you joined a little later than when it began, again, this is Simon Chee, Assistant Director, Career Services with Embry-Riddle in Asia, and also Vinna Tsang, Founder and Director of the Executive Search. We were both, myself and Vinna, are live in Hong Kong, and Simon is live from Singapore. Thank you again to both of you for your insight today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me get this next screen up here. I also want to thank, we have one comment here I want to make sure I addressed. Let's see here. I'm going to turn off your radios, guys. It's good seeing you both.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Let's see. I love putting some music on. As you know, I told you I was a music major, right? So thank you to all of you for attending today. Make sure I get everybody here in the comments. Yep, there's a university in Malaysia, in KL. Thank you very much for joining. Make sure your students there are filling in that survey there on Google Forms. That will be important for your teachers. Thank you again for being part of the Asian Business Aviation Association's Business Aviation Career Talk in February 25th, 2021. Stay tuned for the next session. They'll be coming up. And you will get notifications if you join AsBAA Discovery. Go to asbaa.org on the right side, AsBAA Discovery, for more information. This webinar, this discussion will be posted online later on. We'll try to post it up tomorrow. It will be on YouTube as well as LinkedIn and Facebook. Thank you again for joining us today from all over the region. This is AsBAA signing out.